Hello, good afternoon and good morning around the world. We're about to go live on Smart Money Culture TV there on your TV in Texas and Louisiana. And of course, we are streaming live around the world. Just waiting for that lead in right now. And we are not quite there yet. Yes. Should be live right about now. Okay, welcome Texas, welcome Louisiana. Thanks for joining us on your TV sets there in Texas and Louisiana. Hats off to Smart Money Culture TV for giving us such a wonderful platform to work off of. A lot going on today. Of course, we have Trump there at his hearing, and the oral arguments about Colorado keeping him off the ballot. Really interesting stuff. I just heard an exchange. Actually, I'm going to play it for you. We have, of course, Hawaii just canceled the Second Amendment for the people there, which is absolutely unbelievable. I really just don't even know really what to think of it. Just really shocking. And, as well, we have the Asian markets have continued to pump with the quantitative easing, the money printing of Asia right now, which is what's going on. I'm sure it's quite coordinated with the powers that be here. And, we'll see how long that lasts. So they're printing up the money. The Bank of Japan came out this morning and said that they are going to continue with lower rates. Basically, they're not going to aggressively change anything. Their rates are actually negative. So I'm going to jump right in here. I hit the wrong button there, so I can double hear me here. Okay, so I am going to share my screen because what just got put out on Trump, and I know Trump is also going to do he is going to also do a hearing. So I'm going to be keeping my eye, or a hearing. He's going to do a press release. So I'll be keeping my eye on that as well. But this is just fresh off the press, an exchange between Murray, which is the Colorado lawyer, and Justice Clarence Thomas. Listen to this. And this is just to give you a little bit of preface. Justice Clarence Thomas takes down the Colorado attorney. This is my words. Jason Murray during the Trump's Fourth Amendment hearing in the Supreme Court, SCOTUS. He asked for examples. And of course, Murray doesn't have any examples because there are actually no examples of a state keeping a national person running for national office off of the
states have created under their Article 1 and Article 2 powers to run elections.
But it would
states have created under their Article 1 and Article 2 powers to run elections.
But it would seem that particularly after
states have created under their Article 1 and Article 2 powers to run elections.
But it would seem that particularly after Reconstruction and after the Compromise of 1877 and during the period of Redeemers, that you would have that kind of conflict. There were a plethora of Confederates still around. There were any number of people who would continue to either run for state offices or national offices. So it would seem that would suggest that there would at least be a few examples of national candidates being disqualified, if your reading is correct.
Well, there were certainly national candidates who were disqualified by Congress refusing to seat them.
I understand that, but that's not this case. Did states disqualify them? That's what we're talking about here. I understand Congress would not seat them.
Other than the example I gave, no. But again, Your Honor, that's not surprising because there wouldn't have been, states certainly wouldn't have the authority to remove a sitting.
So what's the purpose
officer.
what was the purpose of the Section 3? The states were sending people. The concern was that the former Confederate states would continue being bad actors. And the effort was to prevent them from doing this. And you're saying that, well, this also authorized states to disqualify candidates. So what I'm asking you for, if you are right, what are the examples?
Well, Your Honor, the examples are states excluded many candidates for state office, individuals holding state offices. We have a number of published cases of states.
I understand that. I understand the states. controlling state elections and state positions. What we are talking about here are national candidates. I understand you look at Foner or Foote, Shelby Foote or McPherson, they all talk about, of course, the conflict after the Civil War. And there were people who felt very strongly about retaliating against the South, the radical Republicans. But they did not think about authorizing the South to disqualify national candidates. And that's the argument you're making. And what I would like to know is do you have any examples of this?
Many of those historians have filed briefs in our support in this case, making the point that the idea of the 14th Amendment was that both states and the federal government would ensure rights, and that if states failed to do so, the federal government certainly would also step in. But I think the reason why there aren't examples of states doing this is an idiosyncratic one of the fact that elections worked differently back then. States have a background power under Article 2 and the 10th Amendment to run presidential elections. They didn't use that power to police ballot access until about the 1890s. And by the 1890s, everyone had received amnesty and these issues had become moot. So I don't think the history tells us.
Sort of look at Justice Thomas's question sort of from the 30,000 foot level. I mean, the whole point of the 14th Amendment was to restrict state power, right? States shall not abridge privileges, immunity. They won't deprive people of property without due process.
That's Robert.
They won't deny equal protection. And on the other hand, it augmented federal power under Section 5. Congress has the power to enforce it. So wouldn't that be the last place that you'd look for authorization for the states, including Confederate states, to enforce, implicitly authorized, to enforce the presidential election process? That seems to be a position that is at war with the whole thrust of the 14th Amendment and very ahistorical.
So as well here we have Gorsuch. Gorsuch appears to come out as well.
That this court has held. You're not contesting this that this court has held. You're not contesting that this court has held. You're not contesting this or asking us to revisit that decision in Thornton or term limits or whatever you want to call it, that it has to come from some federal constitutional authority.
No, we are not, Your Honor.
Okay. And here we're not talking about the qualifications clause, right? Nobody's talking about whether he's 35 years old or natural born, whatever, right? Not an issue, okay? Under the 14th Amendment and Section 3. So that's where you have to find your authority, right?
We find our authority in Article 2, in states' plenary power to run their election.
Federal election, but this is for a federal office. It has to come from the Constitution, and you're seeking to enforce Section 3.
We're suggesting that in their broad power to determine them, to select presidential electors in any manner they see fit, they can take account of Section 3 and apply Section 3.
Could they do it without Section 3? Could they disqualify somebody for, on whatever basis they wanted outside of the qualifications clause?
That would run into term limits,
I would think so, right? So it has to come back to Section 3. And if that's true, how does that work, given that Section 3 speaks about holding office, not who may run for office? It was a point Mr. Mitchell was making earlier, and I just wanted to give you a chance to respond to it, because it seems to me that you're asking to enforce in an election context a provision of the Constitution that speaks to holding office. So it's different than the qualifications clause, which is all about who can run and then serve. Yeah.
I don't know that it is different.
Okay.
Other qualifications for office similarly talk about eligibility for the office. There's nothing unconstitutional about a 30-year-old trying to get on the ballot.
Except for this disability can be removed, right, under Section 3. That's what's different about it. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, so pretty interesting rollout of what we have going on there. Of course, guys, they're just trying to keep him off the ballot because they're scared that he's going to win, obviously. I mean, that's what we have going on here. And so hopefully, I always say this, the Supreme Court is not going to save us. And but that does sound good. I'll admit that. But judges in general are not revolutionists. The Supreme Robes are not going to save us. And we saw a little bit of that with one of the recent rulings that came out as well. I don't have a lot of faith in them saving us. They have a different role in everything. Okay, so but hopefully, fingers crossed that this should be a pretty easy slam dunk case. So hopefully that is what ends up coming out of there. We will see. So I am keeping my eye. Trump is supposed to come out and have a press conference. So I am keeping my eye open for that as we move forward. The Dow Jones Industrial is down. Oh, here's Tuberville. Tuberville had something to say about all this too. Good old Tuberville. We love Tuberville around here. He's a good guy. Here's what he had to say.
They're using illegal. Now Democrats across state capitals across America have decided, and they're trying to kick President Donald Trump off the ballot in November. They're using a legal theory that has never, ever been used before. It goes way beyond the Constitution. It twists the words of our Constitution into something that has never been. Democrats like to talk about our democracy. They love it. They love to talk democracy. But Democrats are desperately trying to stop the American people from deciding who will be our next president.
Pretty crazy. That's Coach Tommy Tuberville.
Now Democrats across
Tuberville's awesome. Justin Kavanaugh dropped some common sense. Trump has not been charged. This is from one of my friends here.
Ballot access determinations in election cases are decided all the time. He had the opportunity to call witnesses remotely. He didn't use all of his time at trial. There was ample process here, and this is how ballot access determinations in election cases are decided all the time.
Okay. Second question. Some of the rhetoric of your position, I don't think it is your position, but some of the rhetoric of your position seems to suggest unless the states can do this, no one can prevent insurrectionists from holding federal office. But obviously, Congress has enacted statutes, including one still in effect, Section 2383 of Title 18 prohibits insurrection. It's a federal criminal statute. And if you're convicted of that, it says, shall be disqualified from holding any office. And so there is a federal statute on the books, but President Trump has not been charged with that. So what are we to make of that?
Two things, Your Honor. Section 2383 was initially enacted about he had the opportunity to call witnesses remotely.
Yep. President Trump has not been charged with insurrection. Well, of course, that'll probably come pretty soon. So, yeah, it's a crazy situation here that we have going on in our political discourse. Absolutely, really unbelievable what we have going on. I am keeping an eye on kind of just refreshing. Probably Trump will wait until these oral arguments are over and then come out. But pretty interesting stuff.
There was ample
the fact that everything that we have going on is a lot of posturing. If you even look at what just came out, I saw one of these guys who's always complaining about the Republicans. He comes out and he says, the way that we can make sure that we get the funding, the Ukraine funding, is by having just a couple of the Republicans not vote for any of the different rule changes until they bring that up to the floor. Just absolutely unbelievable that, we have a border that's wide open. We have thousands and thousands of people coming over, and, Eagle Pass, guys, Eagle Pass. I fear everything. And I'm a bit cynical after being in Washington for so many years, but everything that I see, like, okay, so they closed down Eagle Pass, and there's, 3 people are coming across instead of 3,000 per day coming through Eagle Pass. But what does it look like a mile up the road? You know what I mean? What does it look like, somewhere else? I mean, we saw the video of land that is supposed to be in control. I played it here on the show, in control by the National Guard, supposed to have total control of that land. And they were busing around what appeared to be migrants, bringing them across the border. So, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors that we have here in Washington to get things that they do to get things done. I don't think anybody thinks that there's any way in anybody's mind that we should be sending money overseas to foreign wars while everything is such a mess here. And on that note, I wanted to talk real quick about tax, because the real tax, and I'm going to be watching here as we go into commercials as well over in Texas and Louisiana, because I want them to hear this too. But I put this out a little bit earlier. According to the U.S. Treasury Department, the government spent $6.13 trillion in 2023. They plan to collect about $1.5 trillion from income tax. That means the real tax rate is actually 4 times higher. Do the math, okay? They already spent $1.6 trillion in 37 days of 2024. Listen to what the real tax is. Listen to this.
And if you do that, you can stop worrying. Keep your eye on one thing and one thing only: how much government is spending. Because that's the true tax. Every budget is balanced. There is no such thing as an unbalanced federal budget. You're paying for it. If you're not paying for it through it in the form of explicit taxes, you're paying for it indirectly in the form of inflation or in the form of borrowing. The thing you should keep your eye on is what government spends. And the real problem is to hold down government spending as a fraction of our income. And if you do that, you can stop worrying about the debt. Keep your eye on one.
So pretty interesting. She says, keep your eye on one thing and one thing only, and that is how much they're spending. How much they're spending. So as I mentioned, we spent $6.13 trillion the government spent, according to the U.S. Treasury Department, last year, and we're about to collect $1.5 trillion in income tax. That is 4 times as much. That's 4x. So that means your real tax rate is actually 4 times higher when you include inflation. Because as he said, it's always, the books are always budgeted. It always is budgeted. And I think I missed that on my smart money on our TV in Texas. Now we're back on, so I want to play this one more time. Listen to this, guys. This is according to the U.S. Treasury Department, the government spent $6.13 trillion in 2023. They plan to collect $1.5 trillion in income tax from 2023. That means your real tax, including inflation, is actually 4 times higher. They already spent $1.6 trillion in the first 37 days of 2024. So you can imagine where this is going. I mean, it's absolutely not sustainable. But listen to this. This really lays it out.
Keep your eye on one thing and one thing only: how much government is spending. Because that's the true tax. Every budget is balanced. There is no such thing as an unbalanced federal budget. You're paying for it. If you're not paying for it through it in the form of explicit taxes, you're paying for it indirectly in the form of inflation or in the form of borrowing. The thing you should keep your eye on is what government spends. And the real problem is to hold down government spending as a fraction of our income. And if you do that, you can stop worrying about the debt. Keep your eye on one thing.
That, I think, is pretty interesting, guys. Pretty interesting. All right, we had our main man, Matt Dixon. He gave us a very good run of things this morning as well. After we watch this, I want to talk about these direct energy weapons that I believe most of us believe are being used in Hawaii and now Chile. Let me just pull up my report here. Impact money. So Matt joined us in the morning. Does an amazing job of putting together the markets. And so I wanted to play him. Here he is, 6 hours to go. Texas, good morning, Louisiana.
Narrative, some sort of dirty flavor. I mean, I'm just sharing screen pretty much straight away, so I'm trusting you can see my screen there.
Well, I think we both added to the stage once. There we go. Yes.
Actually, what I'll do first of all, I'm actually just going to show the Japanese yen. Yes. The yen are doing things in a different way. They've not raised interest rates in the same way that America and the rest of the world have. And because of that, the yen has been weakening. So as this goes up, this is the dollar against the yen. It's showing dollar strengthening, yen weakening. And that's because they've kept interest rates really, really low in Japan, as you said, but they do manipulate the market. So they do something that's called, they actually manipulate the yield curve, and they intervene in the currency markets. So they have an active policy, and I think it's called some sort of dirty float or something it's called, because it's supposed to be a freely floating currency, but yet they intervene and manipulate the currency. So clearly it's not freely floating. The Japanese government manipulate that currency dramatically, and they do it to try to ensure their trade, to manage their trade expectations, so to promote trade and so on. So a weak yen actually means they can sell very, very cheaply and be very, very competitive. And so that's why I think they've kept such a weak yen to support their economy. And others do it in different ways. As you know, China are pumping money into the economy and releasing liquidity to keep things afloat. So they're all doing it in different ways, sometimes in competitive ways, but it's just quite interesting to see. And we'll just look around a few different cryptos and various currencies today. I just thought it's quite interesting looking at Bitcoin because, as I said yesterday, I believe there are warning signs out there, and I've actually put on the volume indicator today. I'll just show it. You can see it just here. This area here, you can see back in earlier last year, volume was quite high in crypto. This is before the big rise. But as the market's been rising, the volume has been dropping off. Mm-hmm. And that, for me, as I said yesterday, is a bit of a red flag, bit of a warning sign flashing there that potentially the market is not being driven by volume. So it means there's not as much institutional interest as I thought there would be following this ETF approval. Volumes are staying really low, and yet the market's going higher. And this is because the narrative for the retail investors is a really good narrative. We're waiting for the next bull run, of course. So people are staying in and getting involved with that. They hear about the Bitcoin ETF and think, yes, that's going to be amazing. So all the news coming out, and Michael Saylor and so on and so on, buying more Bitcoin, borrowing and buying. So the background narrative, the environment is really good, and it's causing this retail price appreciation, but there isn't the volume. You can see the volume has been pretty low. And that is a warning sign to me, and that's why I actually closed my position yesterday. As I say, I closed in profit, so I'm happy with it. And I actually expect the market to continue to go a bit higher. So even here, if I just expand this out to where we are in the final bit of the move, you can see we moved up really nicely the past couple of days, really. And I'm expecting it probably to continue higher. It may even break beyond this, what I've got labeled as wave 3 here. So the wave 4 could potentially be complete here, where I've got the A wave. And we could push to new highs above this previous ETF approval high. We could push straight above there, or it could be just part of the correction of wave 4. It could be the A wave, then we get the B wave and a further C wave down. There's no telling for certain which it is. But because of the uncertainty, because volume is really low, and you can even see even in today, it's actually this move is based on pretty low volume. The volume's been coming down in the past few days, and yet the price has been going up. So it's not the strongest signal for me. I like to see strong volume. And if you looked, if I just go back to when we got the massive pump, I could go back even further, but you can see that the volume bottomed after the massive pump we got last time in the market. But then when the market had bottomed around the FTX low, volume started coming into the market, and that's what drove the price up initially. That's a good sign. I was actually telling you there's some major participants in the market buying in with this heavy.
That was when you messaged me and said I'm dollar cost averaging Ethereum.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that was just a great sign. These are the sort of things you need to be looking at, not at today's price, but what's causing the price, what's driving it, and who's behind it, what volume is behind it. And so we could see here there's big volume coming into the market. And yes, we got some kind of pullback to be expected after such a strong volume. But then that's when this is basically, I think, where a lot of the institutions got out before this ETF approval. So that was the buy the rumor, sell the news event. And now the volume, even on RSI, you can see here that momentum is dropping off dramatically, even though price is actually pushing up at the moment. So there's a number of warning signs there. I'm not telling you to buy, sell, or whatever. I'm just saying be careful, because the signs are there that potentially the big players have possibly already taken their profits, and the market is potentially being pushed up by some of the retail players. And I think they'll probably still push it again higher. I mean, I've got here, once this blue wave 4 is complete, whether it's here or here, we should push up in a fifth wave, again, which will probably be on even lower volume. And then we'll probably start to see maybe some divergence in the market ready for a potential sell-off. So I won't run through too many, because I know you've got other guests today, but I thought it's just good to look at that. And we can look at the volume across different assets. So, for example, we'll look at the S&P 500. Even the S&P is actually, the volume, again, is not that high, considering we're at new all-time highs in the market. You can see volume's pretty low. So once again, it's not being driven so much by, by big players in the market. And we can see we've got a 5-wave move nearing completion, I think, here. And so that being the case, it would mean the big players nowhere near the top. The big players aren't pushing this, and that's why there's no volume here. But the retail players are still seeing, oh, this is amazing, new all-time highs. The market's going just up and up and up, and they're pushing the market up without much volume. But the big players, I think, have already taken the profits. Right around here, they probably took their profits around the top of this wave 3, and that's typically the wave 3. What we said, it's the big aggressive move normally. That's at the end of that is where you see the big players taking the profit, and then there's just the retailers left in, pushing the price up again from there, and that's where trouble potentially comes. And here's the dollar index again. People have been calling a top in dollar index, saying it's coming down. Well, at the moment, we cannot say. There's no particular sign that dollar index is turning. There's no particular reason for it to turn at the moment. It may turn, but I'm just saying there's no particular technical indicators saying. I don't see any divergence there in particular. There's no real reasons for it to turn. And at the moment, the expectation is that the US are going to keep rates higher for longer, which means upward pressure on interest rates, upward pressure on US dollar. And we know that the others are manipulating the currencies, like Japan and China are pumping money into the market. So even though they have fixed currency, it's still basically providing liquidity, whereas America aren't. But money's still flowing into the dollar for now, because it's got such high interest rates that people want to get the higher return you can get from the dollar than you can get from, why would you invest in yen? In yen bonds, for example, producing nothing, when you can invest in US dollar, giving you massive returns, and also it's actually appreciating. So you got a double win there. So that's why money is still flowing into the dollar for the time being. And even oil price is still pushing up a little bit here. I do think that this is probably, before we get another fall in oil prices. So there's a lot going on in the market at the moment. When I say a lot in terms of signs for us and signals for us. But the big news that we're waiting for is on the 13th. It's going to be the next CPI numbers coming out of the US.
Yeah.
So core is expected to stay stable, meaning it's not declining. And we'll see what happens with the overall rates. But with inflation staying high in the US, it means that, that's why the Fed, I guess, aren't lowering rates, because inflation is still high. And if we were to see a tick up in inflation, that would be devastating for risk assets, I believe, because it would mean that the Fed are unable to lower rates, and they will be keeping higher rates for longer. And who knows? They could even raise rates again. You just don't know. There could be a shock in the market. So
that would be a shock.
Yeah. So all eyes on the US and the US inflation. That's next Tuesday. So it's very close, only a few days away. And that'll give us some clear direction, I think, on the market. Solana is one of the few, I think, that's maintained pretty good volume. I mean, it's maintained good volume throughout most of this. But even so, volume, you can see even here, has actually declined whilst the market's been rising in this final move here. And again, that's reasonably typical, potentially, of a B wave, which is usually on low volume. If it is a B wave, it could be that wave 4 completed here, but I've got it labeled as A, with a B wave just pushing up a bit, and then another push down in a C wave to finish wave 4. So that again is reasonably typical that we're seeing volume dropping off. So even Solana, which is the sort of token of the hour, everyone's singing about Solana. Although you do know probably that Solana had another outage on was it yesterday or the day before? They had an outage. Basically, the network was down for, I think it's 25 minutes. They fixed it quite quickly. It's the 6th time it's happened, I think, and it didn't actually affect the price, surprisingly. So maybe people are just getting used to it. But it just shows that Solana still has some scalability issues, and that they recovered the situation very quickly. But it does leave room for other up-and-coming cryptos to step into the potential void, because Solana, yes, it's amazing. It's got amazing transaction speeds, but it's an inflationary token. And I'm telling you, there's others up and coming that I'm going to be telling you about that could potentially challenge Solana's elevated position. I didn't say top spot because still Ethereum's still in that top spot, I guess, of those tokens. But Solana is right up there. It's I mean, in terms of performance, it's outperformed everything, hasn't it? It's been amazing.
It's been amazing. I mean, it down from like $10 up to where it is now. I mean, 10x, I think even more. Pretty interesting though that they stopped the chain again, or it stopped. It was basically shown over the last year or so after the FTX collapse that when they stopped it before, it was on purpose, and they were forcing through transactions before other transactions. They were holding certain ones and forcing other ones. And that's what we talk about a lot, guys, with being careful with a lot of these new tokens. They are eminently controllable. You want to make sure they're great for making money. I mean, it's outperformed everybody. But you have to keep that in mind because it is, even though it's kind of decentralized, it's quite centralized.
You're absolutely right, and that is one of the issues with Solana, that to run a node is very, very expensive with Solana. And because it's so expensive, that means it is centralized, because only a few big players can actually run those nodes. And that's why, again, I will be looking at alternatives and presenting alternatives, which actually is very, very cheap to run nodes, validation nodes. That's not the case with Solana, so it's highly centralized. And the whole reason crypto, of course, came into existence was to do away with this centralization of power within the financial world. And that's why Bitcoin was born, out of the financial crisis. The problems of centralization, Bitcoin fully decentralized and remains the most decentralized, really, of the currencies. So, even, there's still a lot of centralization even within Ethereum, really. So, I think that's an very important point that you raised there, Bruce, about the centralization and just to consider tokens. And that's why I am looking forward. If it's okay with you, I'll discuss it with you. I'd like to bring on a guest to discuss a particular token that I'm very, very excited about. And rather than do it disservice just presenting somebody else's token, I'd rather get the guys themselves in.
Awesome.
Because
I mean, sure, we'll discuss it, but absolutely, that's what it's all about, really. Is educating the people. That's what it's. These times right now. They're hard for a lot of people to understand what's going on, and you have these massive amounts. I mean, you just look at even Solana up, whatever it is today, or Bitcoin up 4% or something. I mean, people are used to making this an entire year on their investments, and this stuff's happening in a single day. So we want people to be able to understand what's going on.
Yeah, big riser today is Cardano. Again, we had this labeled in advance about the ABC correction down, potentially looking at a push higher, and that's exactly how it's gone. And the one we mentioned the other day, Link, again, is kind of leading the way. It broke out of that consolidation, broke higher ahead of all the rest. And I did say it was the market leader at the time, and the others would follow suit. And that's precisely what we're seeing now with the other tokens. So it's good to look at correlations and look at leaders and just see what's happening with the others. And, we can have a quick look at, XRP here. I mean, there's one of the, there's news about XRP saying there's going to be some amazing announcement coming in the next few days. Well, nobody listened to it. Yes, XRP has risen from its low of, the last few days, risen a little bit, but no major spike in price. And so people are becoming a bit inured to all these, they shouldn't be coming up with these things saying it's inside information that news is coming out in the future or something. They're just trying to pump the price, maybe for their own ends. So this is what we need to avoid. As I say, again, it's more problems with potential centralization. If somebody's in the know and knows information is coming out, they shouldn't be, it's not right that they have that information. They're not privy to that, shouldn't be privy to such information, and then trying to pump the markets and benefit from it. This is what crypto is trying to do away with.
Yep. That's right.
So, yeah. And I know you've got a lot on today, so I'm happy to go on, or we can leave it, or if there's any particular tokens you want me to look at.
Well, I will go to a commercial there in Texas in about a minute. So I think that, one of the interesting, and then we'll pull on Jason here with the Komodo platform. But I think that, one of the interesting things that's going on right now, of course, is just this, the stock market. I mean, people just keep looking at it. The stocks and crypto and everything just keeps going up, and their money, their fiat money just keeps going down, and so it's scary for them to get involved. But I think things like your platform, like Eve, and Learn How to Trade, David just put it up there, are going to help out a lot. We need to get that set up. Let's try to launch that if we can.
Yeah, and so just finally on the S&P 500, I mean, here was the chart. So I've not changed it from yesterday, but basically we've got a wave 1, 2. You measure that wave, you transpose it to the start of wave 2. It gave you the exact top of wave 3 to within a fraction, 1.618, that Fibonacci golden ratio. A wave 4 down of some sort, and we're pushing up in wave 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're working on that 5th wave higher. So yeah, it's looking as though we're getting towards the end of this current move up, and we will get at least a correction, if not a turn in the market, but at least a correction down. So that's why I cashed out of Bitcoin, not telling you what to do, but I'm just being transparent. I think it will go higher, but I always, as Warren Buffett always said, he always sold too early, and that's what I love to do. Get out early, take a profit, and then you can sit back and relax and wait for the market to turn. Don't try to catch a falling knife, but wait until the market's turned. Wait until you've actually got the indicators all turned around and the price is moving within a trend, and that's when to take your position. So yeah, market's shaping up very well.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Matt. It's always a okay. We are going onto commercials in Texas and Louisiana. We will be right back with you guys in just a number of minutes. We're going to talk about the Second Amendment being taken in Hawaii, and as well these direct energy DEW weapons. Absolutely crazy what's going on here. So as we are waiting to come back on there, and as well we are waiting to hear from Trump. I know Trump is going to start. Let me just make sure he is not. If Trump starts holding the press conference, that we're going to go directly to that. Here we go. This might be a live thing here. All right, we don't have anything on, no audio on that one. So I don't have anything about him going live yet. I did want to pull up my friend Wendy Patterson here, her post, and she says that the plan through Congress is to go through Congress if Trump is elected and have Congress remove Trump. That is clearly what this guy has argued. This lawyer that they have there. So pretty interesting day that we have here happening on here in Washington. The swamp, as it is, pretty crazy. we only have a little bit left here, so I do want to play before we even, I guess, come back from break here. I wanted to play this. This is about the Second Amendment. Let me make sure I am on the right tab. Here we go.
Inside of Hawaii, we have breaking news coming out of Hawaii. The Hawaii State Supreme Court has just declared that the right to keep and bear arms can be nullified inside of Hawaii because the spirit of aloha demands it. At issue is Hawaii's place to keep law, which is not all that dissimilar from other laws passed by states like New Jersey and New York, which basically said that even if you could have a gun, you could only keep it at your home, at your place of business, at the shooting range. You can't really possess it unlocked anywhere in between. While the Hawaii State Supreme Court did agree that this was a legitimate constitutional challenge, they have rejected the argument that basically saying you can't take a gun outside of your home violates someone's right to keep and bear arms, because they say that that right doesn't exist in Hawaii. The Hawaii State Supreme Court has decided that Heller and Bruin were wrongfully decided because they conflict with the spirit of aloha. This is the really relevant part. I'll read it out loud. The spirit of aloha clashes with a federally mandated lifestyle that lets citizens walk around with deadly weapons during day-to-day activities. The history of the Hawaiian Islands does not include a society where armed people move about the community to possibly combat the deadly aims of others. What? Keep going. The government's interest in reducing firearms violence through reasonable weapons regulations has preserved peace and tranquility in Hawaii. A freewheeling right to carry guns in public degrades other constitutional rights. The right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness encompasses a right to freely and safely move in peace and tranquility. Laws regulating firearms in public preserve ordered liberty and advance these rights. There is no individual right to keep and bear arms under Article 1, Section 17, so there is no constitutional right to carry a firearm in public for possible self-defense. This is wild. I've never seen something like this. I've never seen a state Supreme Court flagrantly and openly defy the United States Supreme Court and try and claim that incorporation doctrine doesn't exist. I mean, that's the concept that in the 14th Amendment, the Due Process Clause, that basically forced all states to abide by the clauses within the Bill of Rights. That even though the Bill of Rights talks about a federal right, it applies at the state and local level as well. We've all kind of become desensitized to words like insurrection, but this is without a doubt a legal insurrection to have a state Supreme Court declare that the, quote, spirit of aloha, end quote, should trump a Supreme Court ruling. Absolutely insane. This is the kind of ludicrous argument you'd expect to see from Shannon Watts and Moms Demand Action, not a state Supreme Court. But it shows just how necessary New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruin was. Basically, the Supreme Court saying that every other court had got it wrong when they had engaged in interest balancing to decide whether the Second Amendment is violated by gun control laws. Interest balancing is the concept that the government can violate your rights if doing so is in pursuit of some kind of legitimate state interest, right? So what Bruin decided and held was that no, you can't uphold gun control laws that are flagrantly unconstitutional because it pursues some kind of other state interest. No, you have to look at historical precedent. What the Supreme Court in Hawaii is trying to do is point to the Kingdom of Hawaii, which, no, it doesn't work like that. Just because the Kingdom of Hawaii did not recognize a right to keep and bear arms doesn't mean that it no longer exists, that it somehow trumps the United States Constitution. If Hawaii wanted to continue living under the Kingdom of Hawaii's laws, then Hawaii should never become a U.S. state.
Well, yeah, he's absolutely. I mean, there you have it, right? I mean, well said by our friend there. And I'm going to move right on into. But what's going on in Hawaii is really interesting, because I do firmly think that this DEW, direct energy weapon, was more than likely used in Hawaii. It looks like it was used in Chile as well. pretty crazy stuff that we have going on here. So I did put a video up on my feed. Make sure if you're not following me, if you're watching us on TV and you don't follow me on X, follow me on @Networks Manager. The gentleman you just watched, Matt Dixon, he is at MD Trade, and my brother is Sir David Porter. So I just posted this. Let me just, well, I can pull it. I had it pulled up, actually. Where is it pulled up? Here it is. Here it is. Okay. Watch this. So I said, do you think they used the same direct energy weapon, DEW, that was used in Maui on Chile? And watch.
The same thing that happened in Hawaii happened in Chile. Why isn't nobody talking about it? Just pay attention. Listen to what she's saying. Look at the caption. The same thing that had happened in Hawaii. That's the same thing somebody else said when the stuff happened in Hawaii. They thought it was a hurricane. This is crazy.
Eso de que necesitamos ayuda, alimento para las mascotas, los útiles, ropa, ya no sé, porque mi casa perdí todo, perdí todo. Chile ha decretado el estado de excepción por catástrofe ante la gran.
Check it out. Look just like the footages from Hawaii, from Maui. It's all seem familiar, right? They've been using these direct energy machines. This is crazy. Pay attention. Why wasn't that red car affected? Check this one out. This is crazy. Tarnished, demolished. This was no forest fire. They said that it was a forest fire. This is crazy. Why isn't the blue? Just pay attention. See that was blue wasn't touched. Nothing that was blue or red. And we wonder why the people in China been painting the top of their houses blue.
So yeah, I mean that's I mean guys, it's and no one's talking about it. So it's great. Now we have X, right? And of course we're on TV there in Texas, Louisiana, on Smart Money Culture TV, which is really absolutely amazing. We're building that thing a lot. We're building a lot. But I'm going to take you down to some of the comments underneath this, because the comments are actually pretty revealing as well, and they share a lot of the different other photos and stuff from the other places here. Let's see here. I was just on this one. Yeah, here we go. Forest fires melt steel and leaves homes, but leaves the trees. And then you can see, I mean, just like, it just doesn't make any sense, guys. You know what I mean? This is this is California fires. Well, so once then you start thinking, okay, well, hold on a second. If they're using a direct energy weapon in Maui, and if they're using a direct energy weapon in Chile, then where else are they using a direct energy weapon, right? And then you start just digging in there. I'm going to pull up a little bit more of the things from Chile. And then why are they doing it? Who is in charge? Who holds the button for this direct energy weapon? I mean, just look at this. Look at this. This is like... No one's talking about Chile. Why are they not talking about Chile? And then you say, okay, do you think that a direct energy weapon exists? Do you think a direct energy weapon exists? I think probably would be more surprising if a direct energy weapon does not exist, right? We got all these satellites up there, and then you have this direct energy weapon that they're able to point down and then just use this stuff all over the place. Yes, sir. That's right. Veterans Peace of Mind says this man is onto something. This is a big deal. And then if they're able to do this and then force the change that they want, I mean, Obama always loved Hawaii. He always loved Hawaii. And that was, I mean, whether he was born there or not, who knows? But that has been like his, he was like claiming all kinds of land, saying it was like forever wild and everything. I remember just huge, massive parts of lands where Hawaii could never develop. And then you have this, I was just there. I mean, I've been to Hawaii a number of times. I was in Maui. I love Maui. Maui is absolutely beautiful. So sad what happened there. But, even me going there, of course, I am a big Second Amendment supporter. And, obviously they were not used to that over there. I can just put it that way. And but that is part of the United States, and it has and so with this direct energy weapon coming in, now they take away the Second Amendment rights. Now, of course, I'm assuming that's going to be sent up to the Supreme Court and probably batted down. But they already started grabbing land. I mean, the local government there is grabbing land. They sent people back into the fires. Like, I mean, it's just it's crazy, the stories that come out of there. Now, the interesting part as well, let's see, something that doesn't add up about these wildfires. People are starting to. Oh.
A lot of people as to what could be happening.
that.
So I want to continue to be able to do that. This is what majority of southern Chile just so happens to look like after a series of wildfires devastate the area. Now I'm going to be reading the context of this article, but I want everybody to stay with.
And really, just real quick, while I have him, and I'm going to continue where I'm running out of time. But Chile and Mexico just came out strongly against Israel as well in their Gaza operations, and then this happened. So who is in control of this direct energy weapon?
Me here, okay, because it gets really sketchy. And it's ironic because I've touched upon this subject before in the Maui wildfire situation. And I enlightened a lot of people as to what could be happening. So I want to continue to be able to do that. So like I stated, I'm going to be reading the context of this article and what's actually happening. But I want you to be able to stay with me here, okay? Because like I stated, things get very, very sketchy. As you can see, days after devastating wildfires ripped through Chile's Pacific coast, ravaging entire neighborhoods and trapping people fleeing in cars, officials said on Sunday that at least 112 people have been killed and hundreds remain missing, and warned that the number of dead could rise sharply. And as you can see in quotations, that number is going to go up. We know it's going to go up significantly. President Gabriel Boric said earlier in the day when 64 deaths have been confirmed. He described the fires in the Valparaiso region as the worst disaster in the country since a cataclysmic earthquake in 2010 left more than 400 people dead and displaced 1.5 million people. But as you can see, thousands of homes were destroyed in the flames, which swept through the hilly settlements around the resort town of Viña del Mar starting Friday. Bill, right? And they just so happen to be associated with this specific conference, which just so happened to happen in Maui as well. As you can see here, the 4th LA Conference on Sustainable Development of Energy, Water, and Environment Systems was held on the 14th through the 17th of January in 2024 in Viña del Mar, Chile. What? For a SMART conference. I can't openly state that term here on TikTok anymore. But I'm pretty confident people are starting to put the puzzle pieces together by now. But if you're not, if you didn't happen to know, just under 2 years ago, CERN just so happened to discover what is known as the fifth force of nature, right? Which is better known as cosmic energy. Now, what's interesting about that cosmic energy, right, is it's collected through satellites.
So we're gonna continue to do this. I will publish this on my X here momentarily, so make sure to follow that at Networks Manager. We are about out of time here. I appreciate everybody tuning in there in Texas and Louisiana. We are on every day at 5 a.m. local time and 11 a.m. We have our show Impact Money at 5 a.m. on Smart Money Culture TV. We understand there's a lot of money, trillions and trillions of dollars there in Texas, and we are growing a lot. And so if you want to get involved, go over to smartmoneyculture.tv and hit the contact form and talk to us and get involved, because we are growing a lot. We plan to be in front of 50 million people this year on a daily basis. So that's big, and that's happening as well. Make sure to check out our websites, Global Boost with the dot between the O and the ST, Global Boost. Get involved in the monetary revolution. Buy precious metals at cost. Buy precious metals at cost at costmetals.club. Make sure you do that at costmetals.club. And then as well, if you want to buy Bitcoin at costbitcoin.club, forward you over there. Guys, I'm signing off. Love you. Talk soon. We'll continue on that X. I'll publish that video that we just were, and see you tomorrow.